I want to ask you, who were Jim Edwards before all this fame and all these marketing eyes around you? Can you give me some belief you had to unlearn in order to move yourself on the path where you're right now? Your first book, which you wrote, preparing for this episode, I found out that in one point of your life, you put that book as an asset in the court by filing for bankruptcy, right? That one.
Yep.
What is copywriting really about? Beneath the tactics and templates, how would you break it down? What actually is the difference between a copywriting and words to impress somebody? But in this moment, when you're going to explain why, not to explain, but actually to drive them towards the point why they should benefit from that, is this creating then in this moment value content? For so many years in copywriting and training thousands of people how to do it. What's your opinion? Can anybody be a good copywriter? Can you then break me down how do you train someone to write? Is there anything what people nowadays misunderstand in the principles of copywriting? Saying that, is this the only our advantage versus AI copy? How do we write compelling story?
If you think about a story, this is actually the arc of the hero's journey, okay? And there are a few main points.
Is there anything you used to teach over the years which you recently realized, okay, this doesn't work anymore? How do you see nowadays funnels? Are they going dramatically to change, or they are going still to be here as a principle and proven thing which work? How do you see this future? There is a lot of fear that AI will replace copywriters. What's your why? Ask me about my button on your shirt all the time we're looking at that. I want to ask you, is there anything I didn't ask you today but you would still like to share with us? Jim Edwards, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being with me here today.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate your time. And before we even start, and people know you as a copywriting god of sequences, storytellings, and all these stuffs, which create actually a huge impact to the sales industry, online sales industry, I want to ask you, who were Jim Edwards before all this fame and all these marketing eyes around you?
Who was Jim Edwards? Well, I won't, as I get older, my stories get longer and I gotta avoid that, okay? Because I'll be 60 in a couple of years and I gotta be careful. But basically, before I started doing stuff online, I was selling. I graduated from college, got fired from 7 different sales jobs, got real successful in the mortgage business. Really good. I mean, I was 22, 23 years old, making 6 figures, back when 6 figures was 6 figures back in the late 80s, early 90s. $100,000 in 1992 was a lot of money. And so, got burned down on that, went into the real estate business, and then I wrote a book. And you told me before we jumped on the podcast that your girlfriend, now wife, told you, hey, you ought to try out this online thing. And it worked out for you. And so my girlfriend, now wife of 31 years, said, hey, you ought to write a book. And I said, yeah, I should write a book. So I wrote a book on how to sell your house yourself. Long story short, tried to get it published by more than 40 different publishers, got rejected, said to heck with it. And I self-published the book and I started using it in real estate to get listings. And so I got 50 listings my first full year in real estate, leveraging my book with for sale by owners. So I had a guy I'd gone to school with. I went to homecoming, 1997. He told me they had bought a web server. Now, 1997, nobody knew what a web server was. I kind of knew what the internet was and stuff. And I asked him a question he was totally unqualified to answer. I said, you think I could sell my book on the internet? He said, oh, yeah, sure. He just wanted to sell web space. I mean, and by the way, I was paying $125 a month for 10 megabytes of web space.
Well, imagine this now.
In 1997. So over 4 years, I figured out how to sell my book myself and sold some other books, got written up in the New York Times for being one of the first people ever to sell an ebook on the internet. And then it just kind of morphed over time that I would figure stuff out. But when I figured stuff out, so I figured out ebooks, I figured out screen capture video, I figured out doing DVDs. all of it education based. And basically, I would figure something out and then I would teach people what I had done. But along the way, every time I did something, I had to sell it. So I just learned how to do copywriting. And then as I was teaching other people, I was teaching them how to sell their stuff. I just figured that was the thing to do. And in 2005, I started developing a software platform that was framework based, template based to help people basically fill out a form and it would create the first draft of their sales copy. And that's really when it started. And I've been now almost 20 years developing that software platform, which has gone through multiple changes and all kinds of stuff. And about 4 years ago, we saw what AI was going to be. And I spent an ungodly amount of money trying to create my own large language model. And we did. I mean, I think I was lighting up part of North America with all the money we were spending on servers and the energy going into these things. And about the time we got it ready, OpenAI came out with their API for their ChatGPT 3.
Mhm.
And I told my wife, and she's like, well, what does that mean? I said, well, it means all the money we spend on this other thing, we're chalking up to a learning experience. And so, the interesting thing now is that we're training a model on one tiny little server now that's way more powerful than ChatGPT 3, and it's costing me like $100 a month to have this server. So, I mean, that's diverging a little bit. But the bottom line is, I'm a dude who had a book to sell and couldn't get a publisher, and I just figured out how to sell. And along the way, I became the accidental copywriting coach. And then a few years back, somebody said, hey, you ought to write a book about sales copy. And I said, yeah, I probably should. And that turned into this. And so now I'm in the process of updating this to include AI related stuff.
This book is
So
that
that's me. I
inspiring.
guess I hope that's what you were looking for in the answer of who is Jim Edwards.
Absolutely. And we will go all the way towards this AI tool which you're having right now, which is amazing, by the way. And I saw the funnel and all how it looked like. And you even break one belief in me where I was thinking for a very long time, AI cannot be used in a copywriting because it's missing on feelings, on storytellings. But you're obviously breaking this down. We will speak about that. But when it comes to book, like I must mention this in the podcast and to stay in the record. My wife went that far that she even put in the CV a part of the big fan of Jim Edwards and his book, The Copywriting Secrets. And she's successfully working already for 30 years in company USA. I cannot disclose it, but it's one of the INC 500 companies
Wow.
for software development. Yeah, and this paragraph, even when I go to search for your email, it comes like my wife's name and count her CV in the search. So yeah, the book has a very big impact. But as you said, you were changing a lot of stuffs and a lot of things in your software and everything. I believe that how you change all those stuffs, you change yourself. Can you give me some belief you had to unlearn in order to move yourself on the path where you're right now?
So maybe not a belief to unlearn, but a belief to learn is that things are going to change. And if you're not evolving with the market, you are going to die.
Mhm.
And you must constantly be growing. And one of the outputs of that, though, or outcomes or outshoots, whatever, of that is I've always thought, don't ever sell anything until you have proven that it works for you. And that's always been a guiding principle for me. I don't sell anything that hasn't worked for me and isn't still currently working for me. Because you see a lot of people that sell stuff that used to work, and it's like the only time they'll start selling it is when it's winding down and they're moving on to the next thing.
Absolutely.
And that's always irritated me.
Yes, and this way of validating offer, it's actually vice versa. It's not the correct one how you should validate it because you shouldn't first sell it and test will market buy it because they may buy the promise, not the offer itself, where the offer actually do not guarantee that promise. Jim,
Exactly.
your first book, which you wrote. Preparing for this episode, I found out that in one point of your life, you put that book as an asset in the court by filing for bankruptcy, right? That one.
Yep. This is the book.
And
This is the book.
and the story which I found out, it pushed me to the tears, where even the judge couldn't believe that this book is good. Can you tell me, in that moment, was you absolutely sold on his idea that your book isn't good, or you were still believing in your thing and on your way and going through that path?
So nobody's ever asked me that question before. So I got to kind of think about that for a second. So I was in bankruptcy court. I had been diagnosed with a heart condition, and I had put 2 years into a business that with a partner that just failed. It just failed for more reasons than we need to go into. Then I got sick and I was really in debt. I was living in a trailer, had no money, and we were like, we're just can't keep supporting this debt. And so I went to a bankruptcy court, and I'm being honest, they made you list out all your assets. And I had, even though I couldn't get a publisher for my book, I had sent my book off to the Library of Congress and had registered it with the Library of Congress. And so he was looking through assets and he said, "Oh, you wrote a book on real estate?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, must not have been a very good book if you don't own a house." And in that moment, two things happened. One, a little voice inside my head say, "You can't say anything. You're just going to have to suck on it
Yeah.
and use it as fuel in the future." And so I sucked on it figuratively, and I used it as fuel in the future to, whenever I felt like giving up or slacking off, I thought about that fat, sweaty little man saying what he said, and it drove me forward. It could have crushed me, but
Absolutely.
it drove me forward and really gave me it gave me some strength that, I haven't thought about that in a while. But yeah, I mean, I can see exactly where I was standing, what I was wearing, what he looked like, and he really was a fat, sweaty little son of a bitch. Anyway, on to happier things.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'll move it from there. But when I heard that part, for me was very emotional. And I was thinking, like, God, you sometimes should really measure your words because they can really crush somebody. And I'm really happy that they didn't crush you. Uh, People already, when they hear about copywriting, they immediately start collecting your name right there, and they said, like, "Oh, Jim Edwards, oh, copywriting secrets." What is copywriting really about? Beneath the tactics and templates, how would you
It
break it down?
Copywriting actually, when it's done well, is simply communication that's designed to persuade. It is designed to persuade someone to take an action that you want them to take. And one of the things that a lot of people do is they say, okay, you got copywriting, and then you've got content or blog posts or that kind of stuff. And so they think that you have to have a different writing style for your copywriting than you do for your content, which is a mistake. Because if your content, which hopefully is good, is really good and people like it, but then all of a sudden you switch up your language and you switch up your everything about the way you're communicating, like, whoa, 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 okay. The selling has started. It's time for us to hit the road. And so copywriting is simply communication designed to persuade someone to take an action online. That's typically to buy, try, click, sign up for something, or get on the phone or a Zoom with you. Those are really only the 5 things that somebody can do. And so whether it's an ad or whether it's a 20-page sales letter or a video sales letter or a author box at the end of a blog post, all of that is copywriting. But you got to pay attention to the context and how somebody got there and what you want them to do next. So that's what copywriting is.
As I'm trying to understand now all your words, for me sounds that it's a certain journey from the wherever it's beginning, wherever somebody catch the eye to start going on that journey towards certain action. Am I right in that?
It's less of a story and more of a conversation.
Mm.
And so it's been said about copywriting, and sometimes I get mixed up about whether it was Eugene Schwartz or who it was. It says, your objective is to enter the conversation that's already going on in the prospect's mind.
Wow, that's
And
powerful.
so you want whatever they want to talk about, whatever you want to talk about, Nick, is what I want to talk about. And so I'm going to meet you where you are. You want to talk about copywriting? You want to talk about calls to action? You want to hey man, let's talk about copywriting calls to action. And then I'm going to bring you around to what I've got that's going to help you do your calls to action even better. And then open up the world to you of all the other things that once you've got that under control, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you could do.
It's very powerful because each of us have certain talks with ourselves in our head before we actually stood on the place where the copywriting begins. And now I want you to break me down another thing, and this is what actually is the difference between a copywriting and words to impress somebody. Because most of the time I'm seeing those posts on social medias where marketers are trying to impress with their results, with their client results, with testimonials and everything else around that content. Oh,
So if I
I
was
love
just
where this
going
goes.
to put this down, make it real simple, words to impress are all about you and your ego. Copy is all about you, meaning the customer, and what you want and the outcomes that you want. And a lot of people with big egos start out over here and then work their way back over here and wonder why their stuff isn't working or it doesn't work as well. But, use the words that your audience uses, use simple words, talk about what they want. And it's fine to talk about what you've done. It's fine to talk about your customers' results, but talk about it from the perspective of how it's going to benefit and why it matters to the customer. And that's where people screw up. Because it's one thing to share a testimony or a case study. It's another thing to share a testimony or a case study and show why it's important to them, not why it makes you so cool. Make sense?
Absolutely. But in this moment, when you're going to explain why, not to explain, but actually to drive them towards the point why they should benefit from that, is this creating then in this moment value content?
It can.
It can, right?
Value content is in the eye of the beholder. So someone who is not in your target audience might see what you just described as, oh, it's a sales copy, that's sales, whatever. But somebody who's in the target audience who wants the result that you're talking about would see that as, hey, that's valuable information. This is something that's showing me that it is possible for me to produce this result. It's showing me a resource that could help me produce the result that I want to get. So sure, that's value. Value is when somebody feels like they are being taken a step closer to the result they know they want to produce.
Very interesting. Then give me a context of how to escape from belief, which we can create in our audience by them thinking, all right, I have all the pieces. I can do it myself. I don't need your help. How tiny is this line in between giving the value and creating a belief in them that they can do all the work themselves?
Sure. But if they believe that they can, I think I know where you're going with this, but just because they think that they can do it themselves doesn't mean they don't need you to show them how to do it faster or to show them how to do it for less money or how to do it with more confidence or competence. So that's great. It's like the people that walk up to me when I'm like at a conference or something, and they say, "Oh, they basically say, hey, I'm an expert at I'm a ChatGPT expert. Why would I need your software?" And I say to them, "Hey, I use ChatGPT every day too. It's great. And they're like, yeah, it's great. It's like they want to fight. And you're like, hey, have you ever noticed though that sometimes it hallucinates about stuff and it's you're like, where the hell did that come from? They're like, oh yeah, all the time. And do you ever struggle with being able to have it give you exactly what you want, or do you feel like you're always trying to fine tune it? And if it was a person, you would shake it to the point of being thrown in jail. Oh yeah, absolutely. And does it bother you that sometimes when you go from one conversation to the next, it's remembering crap you talked about 6 months ago that's totally irrelevant and you got to tell it to don't do that? Yeah, that really bugs me. So yeah, it bugs me too. And that's why I don't have any of that stuff happening inside of my platform. Would you like to see a quick demo?
And then it's a complete turn. I love it. I
So
love the
just
way
because
how you
somebody
frame it.
thinks they can do it doesn't mean they can do it as fast, as cheap, and as well as you can. And actually, someone who's already doing what you're teaching people how to do is your best freaking customer because they're already actively engaged in the process. You're not trying to persuade them to actually get started. That's why somebody who's already using ChatGPT or Gemini or Gamma or Llama or Nick and Tony's Auto Body and AI upstairs is my best customer because I don't have to sell them on AI. All I have to do is sell them on that I can help them get a better result, which I can.
That's very interesting. And I'm so thankful that you're having the board between because by visualization of what you're speaking, it's way easier to understand. After being for so many years in copywriting and training thousands of people how to do it, what's your opinion? Can anybody be a good copywriter? Or is there something initially wired in those ones who are really good?
So my answer to the question is twofold. One, unlike high school English class where originality was rewarded and copying off your neighbor's paper was penalized,
Mm,
with copywriting, it's perfectly fine to model what other people are doing. It's also perfectly fine to learn specific frameworks and specific language patterns that will get you better results. So just great example. If you want to write a really good headline right now, the one to start with is how to benefit without pain. So how to get amazing results with AI without having to become a prompt engineer or be held hostage by a $500 an hour AI chucklehead. So that's a language pattern. Now, learning how to identify more hot buttons. What are the main hot buttons that your avatar has? What is their biggest pain? What's their biggest roadblock? What's their biggest objection? What's their biggest question? What's their immediate result they want? What's their long-term result that they want? All of those things now create a much richer stew to draw from to make amazing sales copy, but anybody can learn how to do it. However, there is a certain group of people who take to it faster than others. And that is anyone who has ever been forced to sell on 100% commission in order to eat or to keep a roof over their heads. I have found naturally are able to understand the importance of learning quickly how to write really good copy. And I fall into that category because those 7 jobs I quit or got fired from my first 18 months out of college, every single one of them, with the exception of working at Domino's delivering pizzas, was all a 100% commission job. So you learn real good, real fast how to catch somebody's attention and start laying benefit statements on them real freaking quick before they throw you out of their home or office or off their property at gunpoint.
love it. And can you then break me down how do you train someone to write like they deeply understood the person on the other side of the screen?
Well, the first thing you're going to do is you ain't going to write like you deeply understand the person on the other side of the screen. You better deeply understand the
Hmm.
person on the other side of the screen. And so all those hot buttons that I just rattled off to you before you start trying to write anything, you better be able to sit down and visualize Skippy over here, your ideal customer avatar, and be able to know what his current focus is. Okay. What are his problems? What keeps him up at night or wakes him up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat? What is a result that he would give his left testicle in order to be able to have? What is a question that he wrestles with all the time on how to figure something out? Ultimately, what is the end run big payoff that he wants in his life? These are the things that you need to know. And then ultimately, what I used to do before I had my AI software, where we literally, you can define as many customer avatars as you want, save them, and they're made up of all problems, questions, roadblocks, results, all that good stuff. Before I would sit down to write to Skippy, I would sit there and I would reread all these things. What's his name? What's his current focus? What are his biggest problems? What's his big result he wants to create? What are the questions that are killing him? What's the big payoff he has? Would literally load those into my freaking brain before I would start trying to communicate, because then that creates the filter for me to be able to basically mirror back to him his own words, his own feelings, and amplify them as well. Because that's really what we're doing. We're just mirroring back their desires, their problems, and we're amplifying them. And then we're inviting them to make a purchase decision or some type of decision that's going to get them closer to what they want and further away from what they don't want.
That's very well explained, and I'm trying now to process all of this. It's for me like a checklist, which is very true, in fact, because if we really don't understand very well on the problem of ideal client, we cannot even write that copy, even close good.
No.
Is there?
You'll just talk in vague generalities that sound good to you, but won't sound good to Skippy.
Absolutely. And it's kind of like cold content, which, yeah, okay, it's there, but it doesn't persuade on any action. Is there anything what people nowadays misunderstand in the principles of copywriting, using ChatGPT, Claude, other tools, Grox?
So I think one of the problems that people are dealing with when it comes to AI tools like ChatGPT, okay, there's a couple things that we talk about: soul versus data. All right. So when you look at ChatGPT, Grok, any of them, okay, they give you data. You know what data stands for? Default answers to anything. In other words, the AI has kind of munched through everybody's book on it's munched through mine. It's munched through everybody's book on copywriting. It's read every copywriting blog. It's read Gary Halbert's stuff. Anything on the internet, it's gone through. And so it can give an answer that is pretty good. And the thing is that most people are not copywriters, okay? So if you're not a copywriter and you don't have to go through the pain, energy, and effort to learn how to write copy, but then this tool of a robot hands you something that sounds pretty good and better than you could have done yourself. Ta-da! Look, Mom, Look what I did. I'm done. The problem is every other chucklehead in your industry is doing the exact same thing. So all we've done is just raise the bar of what qualifies as shit.
We're kind of skipping authenticity in this way.
Correct. And so what I tell people to do is be real careful about trying to use AI to replace you, because you just might get your wish. And when AI replaces you, what have you got? Because in the end, the only thing that we are selling is our experience and how it relates to helping somebody produce a result that they want. That's it. Think about it. That's all we have to sell. All we have is our experience as it relates to helping people produce a result they want to get.
Saying that, is this the only our advantage versus AI copy?
The only thing that gives you an advantage in your copy over AI copy is if you really are good at curating the copy, like editing it, like you really know what you're doing and understand principles. But your copy also needs to contain stories, observations, unique perspective, and lessons learned, all of it that applies to your experience in producing the result. In other words, all things being equal, if I can tell you a story about my first funnel, how I wrote my first sales letter, how that sales letter I went from 4 years, I'd had a 40-page website that I was making a little bit of money from, and then I converted it all to a one-page sales letter that literally overnight my sales increased 250%, and that made it possible for me to buy a little house and make 2 car payments and the electric bill off of the sales from that book that previously got rejected by 40 different publishers, more than 40. Actually, I stopped counting at 40. It seemed like a good round number. I tell you that story, proving I have the experience and I've been exactly where you are, and then I tell you about my product versus somebody who's like, hey, I got a product on how to put up a website and how to do a sales letter, and it's really good. In fact, you can tell it was written by AI. Okay. Who are you going to buy from? The dude with the really good story and the experience who's proven he knows how to get the result, or the person who just has sales copy that was written by ChatGPT?
Yeah, obvious, because we humans can relate to the stories.
So how about if I'm putting out a podcast episode, or if I'm putting out a blog post where I talk about my very first book sale and what I learned the very first time someone I didn't know sent me money through the internet to buy this book, and how I had to process that payment not through my own credit card processor, because at the time I was selling a book about real estate while living in a trailer with a leaky roof and a bad electrical system. And I had to call my aunt, who owned the Craft Mall at the Williamsburg outlets, and ask her if she would process the $39 payment for me. And then I had to turn around and explain to this guy that I had just sent the Word document file of my book, because PDF hadn't been invented yet, why his credit card was going to reflect country treasures. Now, that's quite a lesson and a story all baked into one. And oh, by the way, here are my 5 tips for making your first book sale. Well, most people just come out with the 5 tips. I mean, the 5 tips for making your first book sale can come straight out of ChatGPT, and no one gives a rat's patoot. Why? Because that story and lesson, it's like, that's amazing. What do you got for me? So in the end, the only thing that differentiates us from AI is our soul. And our soul are the stories, the observations, the unique perspective, and the lessons learned that prove we have the experience to help people get the result. No matter what we're trying to sell them, whether we're trying to sell them coaching, software, a training, a book, whatever it is, you better have this. Otherwise, somebody with a bigger budget is going to beat you.
Yeah, and I found in one of your videos where you said that stories can be hacked because they're truly ours, and that I will try to phrase it, nobody can hack you and people buy you. This actually makes a complete mirror effect to everything what you explained right here, because stories are something that connect people. Can you tell me, when it comes to stories, how do we know that we said a story which really touched the triggers in the human to human react? Do we don't go overlong, or do we don't give too many details which are irrelevant, or do we don't give too short details so that people need to think of, yeah, but how this part's connected? How do we write compelling story?
You got to kind of think in terms of the context. What is going to be appropriate in this context?
Hmm.
So in a long form, and I don't really differentiate between the writing and the speaking and all that stuff. I mean, it's all just different forms of the same thing. So like on a podcast, I might take 5 minutes to tell a story, as long as it's a good story, as long as it flows, as long as it's following a good pathway. And there are basically two pathways, two easy pathways that you can use. One's called the hero's journey, and the other one's called the 6 C's. Okay.
Hmm.
And so you got to put yourself, I'm a huge proponent of putting yourself in the place of the target audience. So if it's a 60-second reel or something like that, dude, you can't take 5 minutes to tell a damn story. A
Yeah.
story's like an accordion, all right? Depending on how much time you got, depends on how many details you include and things like that. I told you I told you the basics of converting my website into a 40-page from a 40-page website to a one-page sales letter. Sales went up 250% overnight, and I was able to then move out of the trailer and cover a house payment, two car payments, and the electric bill. Well, I didn't tell you where I was. I didn't tell you what inspired me to do that. I didn't mention how long I had been living in the trailer park. I just left out extra details to build the richness of the story. So if you've got 60 seconds, then you got about 100 words to tell the story. If you're in like a 10-page sales letter, you might take 6, 7 paragraphs to tell it. And so it comes down to the amount of detail that you include, but the most important parts, if you think about a story, this is actually the arc of the hero's journey, okay? And there are a few main points. I was here, nothing was too good or too bad, okay? I made a decision. Something happened. There wasn't a decision or an event. I immediately had a real problem. And then things went from bad to worse, until finally I hit rock bottom. All right. Rock bottom. And there again, I made a decision, or there was an event. I decided something happened. Then there was work with determination. All right. Then there was reaching of the original goal or the thing that I thought I wanted. And then ultimately, though, there was transformation. And that is basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points that if you really want to tell a story, you've got to be able to hit all those 7 points. And you can do it in a couple sentences. At a minimum, you got to do this, this, and this. Okay.
Hmm.
So understanding the story arc, understanding how much time you have, how much space you have, that's going to be how you determine how much information to include. And that basically comes down to the level of detail.
Great. For the people who are listening on audio, can you just break down what is the minimum, what they have to have? They have to have
So the
decision event.
minimum, I was here and this happened. That's
Hmm.
the first thing. I've used different parts of it, but I was here, this happened. Instead of getting what I wanted, everything kind of went to shit. Then I hit rock bottom. Okay. And at rock bottom, I decided something, or I discovered something, or somebody appeared. Okay. And then as a result of that, I was through a whole lot of trials, travail. This is where it can get real long too, because you're telling all the stuff you had to go through to figure stuff out, or it can be real short. Okay, but this is where you can expand and contract a lot of the detail on these two parts here, between the fall and rock bottom, and then rock bottom, and ultimately reaching the original objective. But then the key is there has to be a transformation. You are transformed as a result. you're better, stronger, faster, and you realize that the thing you thought you wanted wasn't what was important. And when we're selling stuff to people, what was important was I realized now watch this stuff. All right. It's you, if you ain't seeing this, you got to see this. I realized I had to build a bridge between where I was and where I learned to go so that you don't have to go through all of this. And that's why my coaching, my training, my software bridges that gap for you so you don't have to suffer. And by the way, if you're down here and you feel like all you're doing is digging a hole, stop digging, because my product, my coaching, my software, my book, my everything is the ladder you need to climb up out of the pit to come up here with the rest of us who have figured this out and are getting the results you want to get.
I have repeated this sentence in sales and talking to my clients and building sales events a million times. I never had this picture in my head visually explained, and I'm so glad that you brought the whiteboard today for all of us to be able to see it. And this is actually the best possible explanation, where I found complete mirror towards copywriting and sales on the other side. Because in fact, they're just here.
Sure.
Jim, tell me, is there anything you used to teach over the years which you recently realized, okay, this doesn't work anymore, completely changed with the AI coming, with the rise of social networks, which we haven't had before, with different content in the way of now preform, maybe better video, less text? Is there anything what you realize like a big difference?
So one thing is you kind of got to get to the point quicker now. So whereas before, let's say somebody were to take a freebie from you. Let's say they signed up for a free report, a checklist, or something like that. In the past, you could kind of warm them up. You could try and develop a relationship with people. Well, now that's real hard to do because everybody and their brother is online, and because of ChatGPT, everybody's a freaking expert. All right. Apparently, I could be an expert in menopause or something like that if I wanted to be. So you got to get to the point quicker. And so what that means is that doesn't mean you pile on people, but it means you've got to just be more concentrated. Like, did your mom where did you grow up?
Oh, back in Serbia.
Okay, so in Serbia, did you guys have frozen concentrated juice? Like you would buy it in a can and it was orange juice, and you would take the frozen concentrate and mix it with water. Did you ever have that?
In the powder, yes. In the powder
form. Did you ever lick the powder directly without the water? And you're like, oh man, that's too strong.
Absolutely.
So the problem is that now people just want to eat the powder. So just using this as an example of the principle, somebody requests a freebie. In the past, you would, you'd warm them up. Hey, here's the thing you requested. I hope you like it. Then the next day, like, hey, thanks for requesting my checklist. Make sure you download it and use it. And I'll be sending you some stuff over the upcoming days and really helping you do. And that worked. Now, I heard somebody say that people have the attention span of a goldfish. I think people have the attention span of goldfish poop. And so what you have to do is, it's like, if we think about this like email or any type of communication. So the instant email that you got to send somebody is, here's freebie, here's your thing. By the way, I've got this other thing that will help you 100x the results that you're trying to get from this freebie. So if you wanted a freebie on, my copywriting checklist, well, let me tell you what, this copywriting checklist, I've got the copywriting polishing genie that you just feed your copy into it, and it goes through my 50-point checklist and will analyze your copy 9 ways from Sunday. We'll give you a complete report with line by line critique of your copy as if I was doing it myself. And you can make the changes to it. It'll even make suggestions for changes. You make the changes and you just feed it back in. It'll analyze it until you just can make it the most amazing copy on the face of the planet. And the cool thing is this normally costs $1,000, but you can have it today for $197. So they're like, crap, I need to polish my copy now. It's got something I can just feed it into this thing and it'll polish it for me. Holy cow. So what are they going to get tomorrow? So that's immediately, we'll just call that 0. 1, within 24 hours, they're getting a proof email. They're getting an email that's like, hey, Mary used the copy polisher and she was able to get $100,000 in sales. I mean, this stuff's got to be true, but she was able to get $100,000 in sales. Nick was able to use this and increase his opt-in rate by 300%. Terry was able to use this and blah, 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 blah. And the cool thing is that right now, because you're here, right now, here's a special offer. Okay. Go check this out. And we're driving them to the sales page. Now, 2 days later, within 48 hours, okay, another one. Urgency. Here's where people screw up. Most people try to use in urgency, they use a price thing.
Yeah.
Or they use a disappearing bonus thing. So limited quantity, limited price, actual deadline. If this is evergreen and you're not using something like deadline funnel or something that literally will enforce this, like ICE agents on the southern border with each individual, then you're a liar. In other words, don't even try and do this evergreen because somebody knows, oh, that's BS. I can come back and get this anytime I want just by signing up for the freebie again. Think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be a loop.
A better way to do it is to use unadvertised bonuses, unless you do go through the mechanical hoops of doing this, in which case it's great. It's just you got to have the right stuff set up to do it. The other thing to do is say, hey, a couple days ago, you requested this. I know this is important to you. I want to let you know that I know it's in your best interest to get the Jim GPT copy critique genie. And so I want to remind you that the 197 is still good, but I want to offer you a couple of things that aren't even on the site. So you're going to get my personal copywriting checklist. You're also going to get a 2-hour training that I did for my $10,000 mastermind people. And you're going to get access to another genie that will write all of your headlines for you. And you can have all of this for just $197, less than what most professional copywriters would charge you just to write 10 headlines. And by the way, most of them are just using ChatGPT now. So now I've created urgency, but I've created urgency around something they're going to get rather than doing a discount or rather than lying about a limited quantity. So what have I done? In 48 hours, I gave them what they wanted. I showed them how to 10x or 100x. I proved it. And then I gave them an extra incentive to do what they needed to do. The other thing that I did was I 100% stayed super narrow on the topic that is of interest to them. I didn't vary. In other words, hey, you requested my copywriting polishing checklist, and I want to tell you about my how to write your book program. Well, shit, they're not interested in that. They're interested in copywriting publishing or polishing. So stay 100% focused on what started the conversation to begin with. So there's a long way of answering your question of what's changed or what's what's not working anymore. Taking too long to get to the damn point isn't working anymore. And when you do get to the point, you have to take them through these hoops quicker of here's the thing, here's how to really get the result you say you already want. Here's proof that I know how to get you this result, and here's a reason to act now.
And this is very powerful because in that way you are saying it's completely ethical with that urgency. Because even if you rinse and repeat over and over month by month, your thing can become evergreen without
Sure.
you disclose the price or some price decreasing and stuff. Very powerful, Jim. Thank you so much for breaking down this. This is entire masterclass episode, and I really love it. I want to ask you a little bit about entrepreneurship in the way of funnels. Uh, Nowadays, we all can see so many funnels that been proved at work: book funnel, call funnel, sales funnel, VSL funnels, and etc. But with the AI coming in there, and I have been tested it with some of my clients, we realized that we maybe not need funnels for events. We can do all this with certain AI tools like autoresponders in DM on Instagram or some other platforms. How do you see nowadays funnels? Are they going dramatically to change, or they are going still to be here as a principle and proven thing which work? How do you see this future?
So I don't think funnels are going to disappear because this is basically salesmanship in print. So if you think about a sales funnel, okay,
Okay.
a sales funnel has a central sales message. And the basic stuff that this answers a sales message to sell somebody something is ultimately to grab attention and then explain why this, why you, why should I buy this thing? Why are you the person to bring it to me? Prove it. And then why should I buy now? Now that's an oversimplification, but those are the big hurdles you got to get across. Why you, why this, prove it, why now? Okay. So whether that's done with a video, whether that's done with a 10-page sales letter, whether that's done with a 2-page sales letter, whether that's done with a video and a 1-page sales letter and a video from cousin, that part doesn't matter. And then the other stuff that you mentioned, like, DM, email, social media, paid ads. Okay. Those are just traffic sources. And AI makes it easy if you know what you're doing to create a whole bunch of different ads that you can test. AI makes it easy to create different, direct messages and other stuff like that. But the bottom line is there's got to be a salesperson, either in person or in print, that makes the pitch once they show up. Then you think about psychologically, just like the grocery store. Hey, I found the stuff I need. I got my little cart, and now I'm heading up to the cart. And oh, look, they got Slim Jims, they got Tic Tacs, they got Bic lighters, they got, magazines. All right. So let me add them to my cart with the order bump. All right. Then, man, you know what the best time is between when somebody buys and when they get the thing they paid for? The best time is the time between when they click buy and when the thing shows up. Because the time between when they buy and when it shows up, they are living in a world of all possibilities, of all things that are going to be real. And I can't take any responsibility for it because they don't have the thing yet. I can't take it. I'm going to take action this time. Honest, honey. Okay, I know I added to the credit card balance again, but I'm going to take action this time. I just know it. And so that time between when they get to when the thing is there is the ultimate time to sell them something. So that's why we have at least one-time offer. Now, whether you're doing this with a VSL, whether you're doing this with somebody as part of a physical process or as part of a process with the funnel, they're hot to trot. And a certain percentage, and I've found between 10 and 30% of the people, depending on the offer, depending on the price point, depending on the perceived likelihood of getting the result, 10 to 30% will take this. Then over on your confirmation page, this is where you can have ads for other stuff that you at least, maybe they don't buy, but if you have ads for your other stuff, you at least raise awareness that you have other stuff they could buy in the future. It's just creating that exposure. So now, no matter how you do this, ultimately, even if it's with a coax cable plugged in the back of our heads with the SpaceX chip in your brain, that process is never going to change. It's the grocery store. It's the, hey, would you like fries with that? Or perhaps a hot apple pie? And, it's just how humans buy stuff. So that's never going to change. AI is going to make it easier for you to get the first draft of everything. It's going to make it easier for you to come up with A/B split tests of everything. But AI is not going to mean that nobody's going to go through a sales process anymore, because until your AI can pay my AI money and the AI hands the money over to me, humans are still going to be the ones making the buying decisions.
I'm so happy that you're saying this because, as I said, like we tested it, it does work, but I still believe in human-to-human connection. And this is something what is very powerful now to observe in nowadays with the AI coming, building all these trends and stuffs. And there is a lot of fear that AI will replace copywriters. What's your honest take on that? And I would like to hear a little bit of the tool which you're creating for copywriters and how does it help people and how is different than others?
So AI is not going to replace copywriters, but people who are using AI to create copy still need to know what good copy is. So we're taking some of the emphasis off of creation and we're putting it onto curation, meaning you may not know how to be able to write it from scratch, but you damn sure better know how to be able to recognize what is good copy and what's not, and be able to improve it. Okay, that's where it's going. Not 90% of your time learning how to write it and then 10% of your time on editing it and making it nice. Now it's 10% of your time making it based on frameworks that work, and 90% of your time polishing it, making it better, looking at it from the prospect or perspective of the customer. So my software, copyandcontent.ai, is designed for you to be able to create all of your sales letters, your sales messages, your emails, your marketing content, your ads. It'll even create an entire presentation for you, including the slides and a workbook and all the promo emails, reminder emails, follow-up emails, and cart close emails, all from one tool. And it's all based on my frameworks. It's basically AI that thinks like a copywriter because it was created by me. And so I am the #1 power user of my software. So all of the tools I use personally, and I have dialed them in to write copy the way I write copy, and be able, however, for you to be able to customize everything without having to be a prompt engineer. So instead of you starting over from scratch, you can come into our system, define as many avatars as you want. Obviously, you would start with one. You can define as many offers and offer stacks as you want. You can define as many user profiles as you want. You would be the user, so you can tell the software all about you, your background, your qualifications, all that stuff. And then we pull all of those variables into individual things that we call genies that help you do very specific things. You want to write a 12 email follow-up sequence when somebody buys? Bam, just load that stuff, hit the button, it writes the emails for you. You want to create individual email sequences, you want to create a webinar, you want to create Facebook ads, you want to write blog posts, listicle. I mean, just you name it. Our stuff makes it. But the
Very
key
powerful.
is you don't have to be a prompt engineer, and we keep everything consistent based on your customer, your offer, and who you are. And you can even define your own personal writing style. We have something you can take your writing, we'll analyze it, give you the description, you save that in your user profile, and then you can have it write the way you write. So it's really powerful. I've got years invested in this thing,
Absolutely.
and we've
I
got
can
thousands of users around the world.
I can believe in that, and all your knowledge which you're possessing now with passion, transforming through that AI tool and challenging it. I can believe how many prompts you already deliver, so that skip all the work for people who use the tool. Jim, is this means that you completely moved all your businesses when it comes to content creation through AI tool, or you're still doing something yourself?
So what I see AI is a way to accelerate and amplify what I'm already doing. So I use my own tools to help me write my newsletters faster, create my sales letters faster, write my, if I said emails already, I'm sorry, but my emails, my ads, my everything. Um, it, it, it doesn't make sense to do stuff from scratch anymore. But the way I've got my stuff set up is I pull it out of my head. I mean, we even have tools that literally, Nick, you sit down and this will interview you. It will verbally interview you, ask you a bunch of questions, and then take that and create the thing that needs to be created. So you literally have a conversation with our AI, and then it creates everything you need based on your soul. And it's literally called the Soul Genie.
That's a very cool name. I love it. Jim, I have a couple more questions where I
Okay.
want to discover some things of a legacy, and as this podcast is trying to discover what's this inner quality of the human being entrepreneur, so that in the certain moment can lead towards that success. When all the noise fades, what still drives you? What's your why?
So it's not money anymore. My why is I have really entered my legacy phase. And what that means is that I'm all about doing stuff that is going to have maximum impact on maximum number of people and helping them to accomplish what they want to accomplish. But if I was just going to simplify the whole thing, I'm reaching back in time 40 years to that 18-year-old kid who went off to college with no clue about what he wanted to do in the world and then graduated from college thinking he was somebody because he had a college degree. And then he got knocked down, kicked, beat up, pummeled by life for about 3 years, and then finally figured it out and then screwed it all up again. And when my life really changed was when I learned truly how to sell and how to persuade people and how to communicate with people. And I'm trying to reach back to that kid and help him do stuff better. And I also know that there are people out there on the other end of the spectrum who have worked hard their whole lives, played by the rules, done what life told them they should do, and then life went and changed the rules on them. And now they're sitting there going, I've got stuff to share. I could I could coach people, I could help people, I could make a difference in people's lives, but I don't know how to communicate with people what I've got. I'm not a salesperson. I just want to help people. Those are the people that I want to help because they're the ones who are going to change the world in a world where AI is going to bury some people who don't understand that they need to lead with their soul instead of trying to replace themselves, because they will.
Hmm.
So I don't, that was kind of, I don't know if I answered that as succinctly
You
as you would
answered
like.
you answered it very deeply, and that's very nice from you. And saying that you're entering your phase of legacy and that it's not anymore about money, I want to ask you, is there anything what you're still trying to figure out when it comes to copywriting and to sales letters and to sales and to all this online marketing industry?
So the more I have learned, the more I realize there is to learn. And the
Hmm.
more I have to make myself go back to the fundamentals and always go back to the fundamentals because that's never going to change. All AI is doing is changing who's creating the first draft of the copy. There's
Hmm.
still a human being that's going to be reading the ad, reading the sales letter, reading the book, reading the blog post, reading the opt-in page. It the only thing that's changing is who's creating that first draft. And I need to know whether that first draft is any damn good or not. And I need to know how to make it better. And I need to know how to tie it to me so they will become tied to me.
That's very
So it's
powerful.
fundamentals.
That's very powerful. Want to ask you one more thing.
Mhm.
Ask me about my button on your shirt all the time we're looking at that. Can you tell us what is easy
So
button?
inside of our software has always been based on answering questions. So if you've seen any iterations of my stuff, the old funnel scripts or any of that, it's basically for each wizard or genie, there's a list of questions that you answer, you hit the build button, and it makes it amazing. Well, the amazing result, apparently, some people didn't like filling out 10 answering 10 questions. So what we did was we create because people would say, "Oh, I can just go to ChatGPT and I just tell it to make this thing for me." I said, "Okay, no problem." So we added the easy button to most of our genies where you can just talk into this form and then hit the easy button and that it will take what you say and it will fill the form out for you. So literally, it's been reduced to tell me about your customer and about yourself. Whack the easy button,
Simplification.
and it creates all the hot buttons and all fills in all the form about your offer or about your customer or whatever. So it's just one way of speeding up the process, and it's actually freaking amazing when you watch it do what it does.
That's fabulous. And we will definitely put the link in the comment sections below and in the description of the podcast episode on video and audio platforms. For the very end, Jim, I want to ask you, is there anything I didn't ask you today, but you would still like to share with us?
Do you think that copywriting is still worth learning how to do now
Me,
that AI puts any type of copy within reach of anyone?
me personally, I think yes. I think that, in my opinion, copywriting is a principle. It's not a
Sure, I
tactic.
agree. I think actually it's like I said, it's about the curation versus creation. It's
Yeah.
less now about creating it from scratch and more about being able to tell if it's any good and know how to tweak it and make it better. That is the coin of the realm. Not the making it, but the being able to make it awesome.
Love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here
Thank
and
you.
thank you for sharing all this wisdom with Whiteboard. You made this podcast way more interesting and interactive, and I'm pretty sure that people are full with their notes and taking notes for home to review and to check it out. Thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.